Hello, once again. Welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. We are talking about Roadhouse tonight. Not the original with Patrick Swayze. We're talking about the remake with Jake Gyllenhaal. We do new releases primarily, so I don't know why you expected the Swayze movie. Anyway, let's dive on in. Ben's got a lot of thoughts. What'd you guys think?
Open.
Sure, I can go first. I don't know. It's like a dumb action movie, but the real star
Ben,
of the show.
I will pull up the clips of you talking about the beekeeper from 2 months ago.
Yeah, but that's it's way better. What the hell are you talking about?
Oh man.
Action movies can be good, but this is something else. So I was gonna say the star of the show in this, like everything else is just mediocre, generic. Jake Gyllenhaal is playing, I don't know, I don't even know. It's like Jack Reacher, but not even Jack Reacher. It's
I'm
like
Same thing.
I'm legit wondering how they're able to film the movie, given that, as Jake Gyllenhaal says, he sees the sea, he swims in the sea. It's like this is on the sea. How do they even film this?
yeah, that's incredible. But the
Matt,
star of the show is obviously Conor McGregor, who puts on the worst performance I have ever seen in my entire life. It's like it's miraculous. It's immaculate to an extent.
No, we're not talking about
Take all the
immaculate. I voted that
sliders,
down.
like all the sliders, you put up to like 100 for perfection and performance. Conor McGregor has essentially synthesized the sliders all the way down.
Does it then like through its sheer lowness become
No,
in?
no, it does not. It does
No.
not become good.
Mhm.
It's it's ridiculous. Like
I think
I thought
Conor
the best
McGregor.
so
part, the
bad.
best part was in the credits. It said introducing Conor McGregor. I thought that was
Yeah.
the best part.
Oh yeah, he's
That,
gonna
Conor
come
that
back.
really
McGregor,
was a cherry on
if
top. He's off to bigger and better things.
if he wants to pursue acting in his post-fighting career, I think he can have a very long and successful box office career if he only ever plays himself like he did in Roadhouse.
Mm.
And
The
he can
thing is,
never
he's
be a
not even
lead.
playing
He
himself.
can never be a
Like
lead. He just needs to be an absolute
God.
fucking maniac.
You know.
he's essentially like he's playing a really hammed up version of himself. Like he doesn't act. No one acts that way. No one is actually that person. That's why it's so hilarious. Because
So
he's
funny. Dude, even with the
Mm.
first time he shows up halfway through the movie, he's
Oh
just
yeah, the
buck-ass
first time he
naked.
shows up is probably the worst acting he does. It's like, hey, I'm Nux, baby. Look at me, I'm naked. I'm even there.
I mean, there's something to be said about the physical presence he's able to exude.
He does do his walk. He does this like ridiculous walk.
Yeah.
He
Um,
walks the same way Matthew Broderick and Daniel Radcliffe walk when they're playing Finch in How to Succeed. Same sort of like big arms. I'm walking around.
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's like his celebration is ridiculous.
Mhm.
He fought. But yeah, what is the UFC background? This is so stupid. Like, how does how is this even a thing? It's almost like they got the opportunity to use UFC. Dana White's like, I want UFC in this. Conor McGregor is going to be in this. And they're like,
That's why
okay.
Bezos said no to a theatrical release.
Honestly, most times executives are wrong about this stuff, but in this case, he was right. This movie's
Mhm.
terrible.
This
Mhm.
movie
Though,
deserved a streaming release.
Damn.
though, I can't say it wouldn't make money. I feel like a
Mm.
lot of people would go see
Oh
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wait,
yeah.
I'm
You know,
I'm I'm
maybe still an L for him on the commercial side, but this is a terrible.
yeah, genuinely curious who here has seen the original one?
I saw it a while ago, and yeah, it's like a stupid 80s action movie, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take itself seriously like this. This
Mhm.
is a confusing.
This one takes itself way too serious. I haven't seen the original. It takes itself way too
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
I watched the original in preparation for this episode, so I just figured why not? It's an
Doing the homework, I
interesting.
like it.
Yeah, yeah. They're honestly, it's interesting how different this remake is to compare to the original. Like one thing I gotta give some credit for to this film and all that. I do genuinely think they managed to make the villains like more hateable in a way that made like to some degree like the action more fun as like Jake Gyllenhaal punched them repeatedly, and all that. Like that aspect was kind of fun in my opinion.
I'm gonna
Like,
talk about three of the villains here, Declan.
Mhm.
Just in response to that. Billy Magnuson is awesome in everything. He's so much fun to watch. Um, and of course he really hams it up here too, just like McGregor. But you know, he's playing not a very, particularly challenging role. He's just supposed to be sort of uh Josh Hutcherson in The Beekeeper, second reference.
Yeah.
Sort of douchebag finance bro trying to
Mhm.
take over the strip to build his resort. You know,
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a an archetype that's used a lot. Um, Second one I'll talk about. I mean, we've already talked about, but McGregor.
Mhm.
He's not an actor, but he's still such a psychotic maniac that yeah, it's awesome to see him.
Mhm.
One
Taking
kick the
the
shit out
driving
of people.
lessons car and just absolutely crushing coconut water.
like just like without any just yeah.
And the third one, Arturo Castro, who is just kind of like charming and delightful in his three or four scenes where he's like, I don't really want to be like this bad guy. I'm just sort of along for the ride. And yeah, I'll make friends with the guy
yeah.
who's kicking all our asses. Sure.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, this movie is so confusing to me. Everyone seems like they're in a different thing. Like,
Mm,
all the
mm,
comedic moments with him were like, okay, this is just kind of awkward, though. I mean, it's nonsensical.
Yeah,
Um,
but you have to remember that there's a hospital like 25 minutes away with traffic.
okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Uh,
Um,
I will say the
yeah.
fact that like I'll
Any
just or sorry.
I was gonna say anything that this movie tries to do, Jack Reacher succeeds to immense levels. Like everything makes more sense. The characters are way better. It's just such a it feels like it's trying to rip off that formula, but
Mm,
it's just not doing it for me. It's not cohesive in any way.
mm-hmm,
Like Jack Reacher, everyone it feels like they're in the same reality.
mm,
Whereas in this one, everyone is in a different reality. Conor McGregor is definitely in his own one. It's I mean it's kind of enjoyable to see him, but after about 5 minutes of him, I was like, okay, this man is it was hard to watch.
There
mm,
are a lot of characters in this film that I feel like don't need to be here, which I
mm.
Oh,
don't.
there's like a million villains. I
Yeah,
was like, all right, is it Dell? Oh no, it's Billy Magnus. Oh, it's his father. Oh no,
yeah.
Conor McGregor. I thought he was in this movie. It's like what,
Mm.
what this is so
It's
They do
it's
throw in
way
every.
too complicated, and all of these characters, like not even all of the laundry list of bad guys, but like Jessica Williams' character, um, Frankie,
Mm.
and
Oh
Charlie
yeah.
at the bookstore, and Steven,
Mm.
her father.
Oh
Like
yeah. And then none
those
of them are the love
characters,
interests. That's
you've
a
you've
different.
got you've got Ellie, Daniela
Mm.
Melchior's character, Melchior. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Mm.
Um, you've got her character as sort of like the emotional tie-in for Dalton.
sure.
Um,
Mm.
but like all these other townsfolk, like the two bouncers that he hires to work with him and
Mm.
kick ass,
The female
it's just
bartender.
there's so much fluff
Mm.
that anytime this movie is not Jake Gyllenhaal or Conor McGregor kicking someone's ass,
Mm.
like it loses something because it tries to make it more than it is. It takes itself too seriously, as we've said the whole night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we know way too much about way too many people in the town. Like, I don't give a
Also,
fuck about any of them.
what is
Just give
this
me two or
Mm.
three of them, and that's it. That's all that matters.
Mm.
This movie is
Mhm.
actually how like conspiracy theorists views the world, though. All right, the bookstore keepers are somehow connected. The woman he falls in love with, the father is the sheriff who works
Every,
for the
everyone suddenly knows
old
his name.
father. I mean, yeah, everyone knows his name. It's like, what the?
Here,
All for one roadhouse that they couldn't just like pay out their asses like $5 million. They don't even talk about that. It's like, you didn't try to buy this thing?
yeah. Well, I think the implication is that she's specifically not selling it to Brandt because they like maybe had some sort of relationship or
Yeah,
something.
I like, yeah, I guess. It's just such a stupid strategy, though. Just send people to continuously vandalize and harass
Yeah.
this.
It kind of sets people in their ways, to not
I
sell.
mean, this is how the mob works. I guess this is how the keys work too. I was not aware, but
It
I
you know
I
it
will.
was fun to because I was just in the Keys right around this time 2 years ago. Um, and it was sort of fun to see, that's that area of Florida. Because I don't know if I was in the exact area of the Keys where this movie was shot, but being able to tell, like when they're out on the water, the difference between uh the northern region, the water north of the Keys versus the water south, um, very different in terms of surf. The water north of the Keys is very calm, and there are certainly sequences like when they go out and sit on the in the water. Um, that's certainly different from the sort of choppy surf that we see when they're out on the ocean side south of the Keys. So knowing that sort of background of the landscape it helped me connect to the movie when there weren't
It
really a
definitely
lot of windows for me to connect to the movie.
yeah, I was about to say that's really an indictment of
I'm
how
I'm reaching for stuff here, Ben.
he's
like
making
one thing I do have
the
to
movie. How that current really I connect with that.
mm, I, one thing I have to sort of praise or at least push back on a little bit about Ben, you saying like everyone feels like they're in different realities. I do kind of feel like with this film, because it plays into the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal can really easily play a fucking weirdo if he wants to. I feel like he and his unhinged energy kind of helps make everything make a bit more sense, at least in my opinion. I felt like given how he's like sort of like funny but also like just odd, I think that for me helped it feel at least a little bit more
It just was so
cohesive.
out of
At the
place, though.
beginning of the movie, yes.
Mm,
When he's got all the, quips and one-liners and he's, cracking wise during all the fights, that's
mm,
funny. I enjoyed it.
I,
And then that
mm.
sort of goes away in
True.
all of his future interactions until there's one line in his last fight with Knox where
yeah,
he
yeah,
gets
the
his head
piano is
slammed
out
into
of
the piano. The
tune.
piano's out of tune.
I heard that I was like,
He's
what?
right. He's right. It is.
Of course
Uh,
it's out of tune. It's being slammed on by a head.
that's not what makes a piano out of tune, Benjamin. You studied music. You
True.
should know.
That's actually not true because the vibration of the strings, it's a hammer-on. So if you hit it, then you could knock something and then it would be a different frequency.
There you go.
I
There
don't know
you
if I
go.
like that answer.
Mhm.
But this movie had windows where it could be an action comedy
Mm,
and not just straight up action.
mhm.
And it failed to capitalize more than the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, there's not enough fights in this,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. That was also a problem with the original, I will say, at least in my opinion. Like the original also it had very well choreographed fights, but it's like there should be more. There should be more. And I think the same
Yeah.
same issue here. It's like
The
I kind
fight
of
the fight choreography here, like obviously it's not going to be as stylized as something like John Wick.
mhm,
And we're doing Monkey Man in a couple weeks, and I feel like that's going to be really stylized.
mhm.
But what we get here is pretty generic in terms of the actual choreography and fight movement. Um, but I do want to shout out the camera work because while again it's not as stylized as say the camera work for the fights in the Kingsman movies or something that Matthew Vaughn does, or Chad Stahelski with what he does with John Wick and that camera work. Like it's not that well designed in terms of cinematography. There are some really cool sort of angular shots that they use. And Ben, here's where I'm going to make you mad. The final fight against Knox, where it goes into the POV stuff for Dalton, that's something, and maybe I need to watch more boxing or fighting movies, because it reminded me a lot of some of the stuff in Raging Bull, where Scorsese brings us right into the ring with Bobby De Niro, and
Yeah.
I know
Look,
it's clearly, I mean, you talk about Roadhouse 2024, it's clearly drawing a lot on what Martin Scorsese did with Raging Bull. And I might even go so far as to say that Raging Bull Martin Scorsese wanted Raging Bull to be the precursor to Roadhouse 2024.
I knew you were gonna get more psychotic as it went on.
Except this part of it's only a bit. This movie was
I'm pretty sure that Raging Bull was probably one of the ones to popularize that, but it's been used in a million fighting movies. I mean, come on.
Hell, the movie Hardcore Henry was a fully forced person action movie.
Actually, no, I think the Rocky movies mainly do the Sylvester Stallone close-up. I don't think they do the POV. But yeah, there's lots of martial arts, any type of fighting movie.
I would have thought some of the POV
but it works
stuff.
in Raging Bull. It doesn't work in this movie because this character's not like the character of LaMotta is interesting. The character of Dalton is
not.
What is that? It's not a human. Like he's closer to a serial killer than any person that I've ever met.
A little bit, yeah.
Like he keeps smiling. Like, you keep talking about the smile, and it's like, yeah, sometimes he makes jokes, and sometimes he like smiles when Ben Brandt brings him the video of him like killing his friend, and he just like,
he's not really smiling. He's kind of he's more just like staring ahead. And
did anyone else find it weird that like there were flashbacks to his time in UFC and some of his background and his history in the ring, but they never really like go all the way with it and give us a proper flashback?
Good. Yeah. It would have made the movie too long.
This movie was already 2 hours.
What they were trying to get at is like finally revealing the trauma behind this tragic hero, which is just that he killed his friend. Do we learn why he just lost it?
He just kind of
I guess blind. Maybe just fighting.
I thought they were going to do some subplot where it's like he was cheating on his girlfriend or something.
No, like Dalton sort of just like went blind with fighting rage.
Yeah.
And went too far and killed the guy. But again, we don't see the aftermath. We see him do it, and then it's right back to the present moment.
He also doesn't it seems like he's got his penance or whatever. He wants to be hurt, but it never seems like he's in any mood. It never seems like he has an issue with it. It's just like something that happened and makes him a tragic character.
Makes people judge him.
Never wrestles with it.
I mean, he is suicidal at the beginning, I will say, which is arguably related, maybe.
He's not suicidal. He just doesn't care about his life. There's a difference.
I mean, he plays chicken with a train, so.
Yeah, it just doesn't care. He's definitely maybe it's a little suicidal, but anyway, I feel like past that he never really wrestles with it. Yeah. Other than that.
And one time someone bringing it up.
So for the two of you, and I had a really busy week, otherwise I would have watched the original before I saw this. For the two of you, Max, you haven't seen the original, right? Yeah. For the two of you who have, and Declan, I know it's a lot fresher for you because you just watched it this week. What are some things that you guys saw in the original that you would have liked to see in this one that you didn't? And if there is stuff carried over from the original to the new film, what worked in the actual remake nature of it?
One thing I would say that the original probably better is I feel like it kind of like it placed a lot more focus on certain characters and didn't try to like include a bunch of other ones, like the equivalent, like the Frankie equivalent is someone who, is like a major character or anything like that in the original. And I think that probably did help it, like kind of just making it okay, this is about Dalton and these other people, and like sort of like focusing on the relationship. Like he still has like leadership stuff that he does, but like I think it has a better focus in the original film, story wise. Also, like in some ways, it's a lot. It's like there's a decent amount of streamlining that. Well, I guess I should say the remake kind of complicates a lot more things, probably to its detriment to an extent, I would say. So like that's something that I think would have been good to carry over, in my opinion. What about you, Ben? Do you remember?
Well, I watched the original years ago, but from what I remember, it's typical of like the 80s action movies,
It's a
which is
very 80s movie, I will say.
campy. But it works. Like
hmm
everyone is campy. It's not like, one guy's telling jokes, one guy is smiling while he beats another to death.
There is a
Well,
Sam Elliott's character who kind
yeah.
of does that a little bit.
But everything works in the 80s. I don't know. It's just it fits more there with the cheesiness of the movie. This
Mhm.
one definitely has much more of a real, like they tie it into UFC and things like that. I mean, aside from Conor McGregor, he's definitely not a real person.
Mhm.
Um,
It's kind of hilarious in the first film. It's like, like I'll give credit to the remake for this. In the first film, for some reason, everyone just knows about this guy Dalton. Dalton, like it's like, is there like a bouncer periodical that everyone is reading? When it comes out every
No,
week.
I
it's
don't,
it's like the John Wick movies where everyone in the entire city of New York knows who
Yeah,
John Wick is.
yeah. Like honestly, like that.
I
That's
don't know.
basically.
It just somehow works. But like, both of us have watched Escape from New York. It's like,
Mm,
oh, Snake Plissken.
yeah, yeah.
I heard you were dead. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. It's like, let's
like
snake.
the universal newspaper. But somehow it just works in the 80s because the entire movie is like framed around that ridiculousness.
hmm
It doesn't feel like a real place. It feels
Yeah.
like a fantasy land. Whereas
hmm
Okay.
this seems like fantasy people in a real place.
That's a really
Yeah.
good way of putting it.
Yeah. I'll also say that like Snake Plissken probably is in my top five favorite like fictional
Great.
characters of all
I mean,
of
I
all
love
time.
the John Carpenter action movies. They're
Yeah.
cheesy, but they're
Yeah.
great. They're
Yeah,
just
yeah, but it's like I'll say that like a lot about Snake is told purely through his eye patch, like the fact that he has an eye patch. Dalton, because he's Patrick Swayze, it's kind of a bit of a strange. It's a strange like thing that he does
no,
pull
Patrick
off.
Swayze is definitely a weird one.
Yeah, yeah. Like he does pull it off, but it is like when you start the film, it's like this guy is the coolest person who ever lived. This is the greatest bouncer the world has ever seen. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe it for Jake Gyllenhaal either. Like,
mm.
that's what I'm
No,
saying. Like Jack Reacher, it's just perfect. Like that man looks like he will destroy an entire armada of people. He's
And
Are you
then he
200
talking about
does.
Tom Cruise or the Amazon show?
No, the Amazon one.
No,
Alan
no, yeah,
Ritchson.
not the Tom Cruise one. No,
Mm.
Tom Cruise is a tiny little Wolverine.
Yeah, yeah. Accurate.
Um,
So, so Max,
George.
having not seen the original,
Oh God.
what do you think your viewing experience was for this one going in relatively blind?
Oh, I mean, I just kind of saw it as a movie, right? Because like I had no reference point um from the original, right? So like I can't like, oh yeah, that was different or that was the same because I haven't seen even a clip or a trailer of the original.
Same.
So I went in pretty much completely blind. you know, I I guess it's what I expected.
Mm.
I mean, when it's a straight to streaming movie, we read the stories about Jeff Bezos not wanting to watch it. Like, I think I expected it to be a little bit better just because Jake Gyllenhaal is a good
A
enough
good actor. Yeah.
good
Yeah.
actor and he can make a film better, right? But it just didn't work.
I think he may have
Yeah,
already been his manic phase when he was filming this movie.
Hmm.
Yeah.
it's and that's a disappointment for me because I watched an interview that he gave, not even during the press junket, but at the premiere of this movie, where he talked about meeting Swayze and working with Swayze early in his career,
Oh wow.
um, and how much of an impact just conversations with him had on Gyllenhaal's life and career. And so you kind of get the sense, at least from that interview, that doing a movie like Roadhouse and remaking that story, retelling that story, would be super personal for him. And I didn't get the, like, again, I haven't seen the original, but
In-
remakes or reboots, whatever you want to call this, when they're done right, they have a breath of freshness to them.
Mm.
They refresh without rehashing. And there are moments, there are hints, there are little tiny love letters to the original or the source material or the
Mhm.
jumping
And
off point on which it's based.
Mhm.
This one, again, haven't seen the original, but there's nothing that I could even say, oh, I maybe that's something that comes from the original. Maybe that's something that they took from the previous film, because it all feels brand new and like they were trying to tell this story for the first time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, immediately what jumps to mind for me is Footloose. Um, it does, Ben, I think you said it where it feels like fake people in a real place. Like that's what I felt when I was watching the remake of Footloose. And I think one that I think succeeded recently is The Little Mermaid, interestingly
Mhm.
enough. It wasn't perfect and was but it also wasn't a shot for shot remake. There was some freshness. There was
Mhm.
a little bit of that magic that the original movie captured that I can't see any of it in this version. Like George, you said it too. Like I don't know what's an homage to anything
Mhm.
that could have happened in the original.
I
I
don't think there's much like mainly the iconic thing of Roadhouse is just Patrick Swayze kicking people's asses. That's kind of the whole thing.
I think
Yeah, but like there
honestly,
could have been something that felt like when they were making this movie, there could have been something here in this film that felt like 80s camp.
mm,
And a little bit of the dialogue
Yeah.
early on tried to do that, I feel like, but it didn't,
or at least
it was
casting someone
inconsistent at
that has the
best.
same gravitas as Patrick Swayze when he
I feel like
That's hard
yeah,
to
I
do,
feel like
hard to capture.
Jake Gyllenhaal
exactly.
is just I guess that he was really passionate about this, but he just doesn't pull it off. Like he's strange because he's very creepy. Like
mhm,
that's the
A
thing.
little bit.
He's not cool. He's not, like Patrick Swayze at all. He's like legitimately creepy.
mhm.
Like charming creepy, but like, somebody that will stalk you when you walk home. Like
Yeah.
And that first kiss
he
that he has
means
with
well,
Ellie
but
is it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Mhm.
Like
yeah.
they didn't have any chemistry whatsoever.
I feel like you want somebody that's kind of like, especially with Conor McGregor or something, you want somebody that can crack jokes. Like Max, you watch out Jack Reacher, Jack Reacher can crack jokes. It like works.
Yeah.
But he's not creepy about it. It's not like unstable in the head.
Mhm.
He's just making a joke. It works as a
Well, part
quip.
of that is because, everything about Jack Reacher is that he is this level-headed guy. The first thing we find out about
Yeah. Yeah,
Dalton is that
that's
he
a
has a
good point.
massive temper and he can't control it. Like,
Mhm.
we know he's unstable from the beginning.
Yeah. It's a weird one.
Mhm.
I guess, yeah. I mean,
I
they keep
think,
alluding to like the Westerns. It's like
mm,
this kind of anti-hero, not really a good guy, not really a bad guy.
mhm.
But It's just so stupid. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't have to deal with any of the tragedy really. I mean, yeah, like he plays chicken with a train, whatever. And past that, nothing happens. It's just like he keeps getting reminded of the fight that he killed someone, and he just smiles. He
Gets
smiles so
stabbed
much.
Like I think they're trying to do a bit of like a Spielberg West Side Story thing where like they're
I never saw that.
expanding.
I don't know what that
I haven't
means.
seen it either.
My goodness, I can't believe wow.
I'm not
Wow.
participating in Steven Spielberg's victory lap phase of his career.
You
I'll
how
watch his
dare you.
good stuff.
No. I'll say like I would say this is an example of an extremely successful remake in my opinion, and I think what they were trying to do is follow that film in like expanding out all of the like the pre-existing characters while also like tweaking the original plot itself a little to like create better dynamics. But I think unfortunately, like the expansion of the characters didn't really work, so it kind of just a bit felt a bit overstuffed, and again, didn't have the same level of focus, you know.
Yeah, I think if you plug Jason Statham into this movie, it instantly becomes much better.
Ben's
I mean,
giving this
that
movie a
applies to
four and a
all
half
movies,
if it's
right?
Jason
Yeah.
Statham.
I'll-
I
But
actually
it's
think
like
that's
he
true, though.
does these movies
They-
all the time, and it works because of the way that he just says lines. Like he's not taking himself seriously, and it's like Jake
Right out of
Gyllenhaal is
tune.
he's oscillating, right? He's like serious at points, and then he's saying things like this piano's out of tune, and it's
He works a bit better in the action movie Ambulance, just because in that one he's kind of playing a villainous character, so the fact that he's
yeah.
unhinged in it, like
He's kind
Michael
of great
Bay's
as that creepy
Ambulance.
guy, but I just don't think the creepy guy works for this movie.
mm,
Like you're remaking a Patrick Swayze movie.
mhm.
Like next
Be
Jesse
don't
Eisenberg.
be Swayze, but be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can act a little cooler than that.
Mhm.
All right, we have squeezed approximately 33 minutes of
Oh,
content out of
I
this movie.
I've got one more thing to add.
Yeah.
So I know that Jake Gyllenhaal loved Patrick Swayze and all that stuff, and you would think that he could get him to do a cameo for this movie, and he didn't. And I think that's
That
just
is what you wanted
disrespectful.
to add? Is this what I sound like to you all the time?
Yes, actually.
That was
Oh my,
that
I'm
was like
sorry,
the
Ben.
most that was completely accurate, but also the most cruel thing you could have said about Ben's statement.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'll be better. I want to take a week to reassess. All right. I am off next week because I'm out of town, but these three will be here with Chip subbing in, talking about David Dasmalchian doing his best version of Johnny Carson's Exorcist. We're talking Late Night with the Devil. In the meantime, Jake Gyllenhaal's Roadhouse is streaming on Prime Video. Check it out. Let us know your thoughts. Gentlemen, I'll see you in a couple weeks, but you guys will see everybody out there next week. So have a good night.
Right.
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.